Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
They don't like this division and this partisan politics.
The mayoral race is on. Another high-profile candidate prepares to duke it out for Surrey's top job. Also, accused of sexual assault, what Jake Virtanen's alleged victim said in court about their night in a Vancouver hotel. And
to have a fire in that area so soon after the last one is really emotional.
The toll on fire crews and the community as an out-of-control wildfire rages again in Lytton.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Lien Yeung. Thanks for joining us. The race to lead Surrey is heating up, with federal MP Sukh Dhaliwal now throwing his hat in the ring. He promises to put an end to partisan bickering. Dhaliwal will face off against embattled current mayor Doug McCallum and at least two other high-profile candidates. Mira Baines has more on the numbers game and momentum to lead BC's second-largest city.
They don't like this division and this partisan politics.
Tension and excitement are amping up as longtime popular MP Sukh Dhaliwal sets the stage for a political showdown. Who was once a political ally, now a foe. He's taking aim at Surrey Mayor Doug McCallum's leadership. The three-time MP is running under the banner of his new party, United Surrey, and promises to freeze taxes for his first year and fast-track development permits.
We have accumulated wealth, almost over $300 million. And we can use that money that we have accumulated to make sure that we are able to help the ones that need the most by freezing those taxes.
McCallum appears vulnerable and is facing a criminal charge of public mischief involving a member of Keep the RCMP in Surrey. However, his support in the last election was boosted by community members who called for a new municipal Surrey police force. Dhaliwal says he also supports the transition from RCMP to Surrey Police.
RCMP and Surrey Police have to work hand in hand until the transition is complete.
Sitting councillor Brenda Locke, who is running for mayor, is opposed to replacing the Surrey RCMP. MLA Ginny Sims, also in the race, says she'll take a detailed look at the transition, then decide. What makes this race exciting is just how unpredictable it is. With four high-profile candidates and a fifth possibly ready to run, it's a political contest in which every vote will count. Former White Rock Mayor and former federal MP Gordie Hogue is rumored to be contemplating a bid for mayor of Surrey, too. Political experts say McCallum has the advantage in a crowded field.
Hides the opposition to Doug McCallum even further, again giving Doug McCallum an easier path to victory. And again, I think Gordie Hogue would have to distinguish himself from the other candidates that are running in opposition to Doug McCallum. Other than being different people, what are they actually going to do differently?
Telford says the key for these candidates will be mobilizing their supporters to vote in October. Mira Baines, CBC News, Surrey.
The sexual assault trial for former Vancouver Canucks player Jake Virtanen began today. The hockey player faces a charge related to an incident of non-consensual sex in 2017. As John Hernandez reports, the alleged victim took the stand through the day. And a warning, the details of the case are graphic.
The details of the alleged sexual assault came out inside a Vancouver courtroom on Monday. Jake Virtanen, the former Vancouver Canucks player, was charged with one count of sexual assault in January following a police investigation. That incident is said to have happened in 2017. Now, on the first day of trial, the alleged victim, who has not been named, took the stand and outlined graphic details. She said she met Virtanen at a bar in 2017 in Calgary during the stampede. She was 18 years old at the time. He was 21. She said they shared a kiss and exchanged phone numbers and planned to meet in Vancouver during a visit a few months later. She arrived in Vancouver on September 26th, and Virtanen insisted they meet that evening. She said she was reluctant, but he came and picked her up and eventually took her to the Westin Bayshore Hotel. On the stand, the alleged victim said, "I felt sick. I got a sinking feeling in my stomach. It was the exact situation I didn't want to be in. The alleged victim testified that at the hotel, she repeatedly pulled away from Virtanen as he attempted to touch, kiss, and undress her. She said she explicitly told him she did not want to have sex with him, but that did not stop his advances. She said he eventually used his weight to pin her down and had sex with her. She said she then went into a bathroom and cried. Now, none of these allegations have been proven in court. Jake Virtanen was dropped by the Vancouver Canucks after initial reports of the assault came forward. He has since been playing in Russia. Tomorrow, his lawyers will have the opportunity to cross-examine his accuser. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
It's been another nerve-wracking day for people in and around Lytton. The wildfire burning there since last week continues to grow. Right now, it's estimated at 17 square kilometers, more than 4 times the size of Stanley Park. As Michelle Gassoub reports, powerful winds and bone-dry conditions are proving challenging for crews.
In Lytton, more watching and waiting as the wildfire spreads to the west and away from people and homes.
The real issue right now is it's moving in a westerly direction towards the Stein Valley Provincial Park. Right now, there are about 96 crew, both provincial firefighters, First Nations, Lytton First Nations, who are members who are fighting that fire. There are 8 helicopters.
Last year, the village of Lytton on the east side of the Fraser River was wiped out by a massive blaze. This summer, it's those on the western bank who fear losing everything.
It's absolutely devastating, to our members have been through a lot in this past year, and to see the ones that weren't affected to be frontline affected now, it's really hard to see. I just have no words.
Evacuees are currently spread between the communities of Lillooet and Cache Creek. A team has now moved in to provide water and food to animals left behind. The hope was that weekend rain would help tame the fire, but hot, dry conditions and winds up to 70 kilometers per hour keep it fueled.
That's the one thing I hope is that these winds die down, just to give these fire crews an opportunity to tackle it. There's a lot of really extremely dangerous terrain on the west side, so it's hard to fight those type of fires.
The specter of last year's fire still looms large, keeping evacuees and firefighters on edge.
So to have a fire in that area so soon after the last one is really emotional for a lot of wildfire staff members and firefighters. So we're doing the best we can to take care of our own.
A community still trying to recover, now watching the winds and hoping for relief. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
And meteorologist Johanna Wagstaff joins us now. So, Joe, wildfire risk really different depending on where you are in the province, but that's set to change?
It is, Lien. We're getting hot and dry, really starting tomorrow for most of the province. The first time that we'll see one of these summer high pressure ridges, I should say, take hold for so long. I've got to take you to the current conditions right now in Lytton. I just checked before the top of the show, gusting to 68 kilometers per hour. I just had a peak a moment ago, gusting to 76 kilometers per hour right now at the Lytton airport. Those winds coming straight in from the south-southwest, 76 kilometers per hour. That is explosive when it comes to fire conditions. And this is part of the reason why fire crews are having such a hard time gaining control of the situation, despite temperatures being in the low 20s today and a relatively high relative humidity. That's all thanks to this low pressure system that brought a relatively cool and showery weekend to the south coast. That's crossing the BC interior right now, but bringing minimal rain. And we still have that poor air quality in place for Lytton and surrounding communities, especially to the north, where those winds are pushing the dense smoke. And again, that is also hindering firefighter efforts. But things are changing. Right now, you can see the fire danger rating green and blue. That's the low to very low for central and coastal sections of BC. I imagine, Leanne, by early next week, we could be looking at most of the province at moderate to extreme. So things turning around quickly. And I'll tell you more about that extreme warm up later on in the show.
All right, Johanna, I'm not going to let you go yet. You've also been bringing us coverage of climate change, including the fact that sea levels are rising, which for coastal communities means for us preparing today for what could happen tomorrow. And the city of Vancouver has been working on plans, and you were there over the weekend to learn more about that.
Yeah, that's right, Leanne. We know that Vancouver is going to be dealing with 1 meter to 1.5 meters of sea level rise in the next few decades. But I got to see and hear about some tangible action taking place. Take a look. I'm here in Olympic Village on the shores of False Creek. The infrastructure here designed for 2010, but it already won't be able to keep up with sea level rise and coastal flooding in the next few decades. And that's why the city of Vancouver chose this location to share the culmination of phase 1 of the Sea to City design project, where 2 design teams share their vision for a more sustainable and more resilient communities along False Creek. It's also about integrating and communicating with the public, raising awareness about climate change for communities that live along False Creek. What did that look like? An intergenerational photo gallery and the town choir, literally a town crier. Live from singing live observations from artists in coastal communities around the world. Vancouver, Brooklyn, Mumbai, and Tokyo, sharing their thoughts about a world of rising sea levels. So what does the future of False Creek look like according to these design teams? Well, a big part of the process was working with Indigenous communities. Of course, Vancouver is situated on the unceded territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, the stewards of this land and water for centuries. And it was working to bring back Indigenous practices and also flora and fauna. This part has huge cultural significance for these communities, and in the next 5, 10, 20 years, False Creek might look a lot more like the North Shore with cedars and salmonberry bushes. It's also integrating water testing, water flow, managing pH levels, so things you can see and not necessarily see in the future. That future is maybe 4 to 10 years away. After this phase 1 is complete, the city of Vancouver will be taking pilot projects from these 2 design teams and hopefully integrating them in the near future. Johanna Wagstaff, CBC News, False Creek.
Yet another crash involving a truck and an overpass to tell you about. This time the collision happened on Highway 1 in Langley. The truck was carrying a boom lift known as a cherry picker, and the 4.4 meter clearance was not enough for it to pass under. This marks the 8th crash involving oversized trucks hitting overhead bridges in the last 12 months on the Lower Mainland. In this latest incident, one eastbound lane on the highway had to be closed, leading to long delays on the highway. Following the surge in commercial vehicle crashes, some BC truckers want more information from government on how to prevent future accidents. As Janella Hamilton reports, the BC Trucking Association says data is key to finding solutions.
Before setting out on the highway, Jim Weber makes sure his 85-ton trailer is tightly secured.
So this is my height measuring stick.
Measuring its height and weight to avoid any problems along his route.
BC has a lot of old infrastructure, a lot of low overpasses and roundabouts. They've put in roundabouts even on the main highways. The windmill piece I'm loading, I will end up at 14 feet high.
A possible tight squeeze for some of the province's underpasses, especially if the cargo moves during transport.
There's a little bit of a rut in each lane, and just that little bit, as a rule of thumb, you will get about 4 to 6 inches of bounce in your air suspension.
Moving forward, the province says all new infrastructure will be built at least 5 meters in height to alleviate some of the challenges facing commercial truck drivers. Since last month, there have been 3 incidents where trucks carrying oversized loads have hit overpasses on highways in the Lower Mainland. This week, a flatbed truck caused significant damage to the 192nd overpass in Surrey, sending 2 people to hospital. The Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure says in the past year, there have been at least 7 incidents.
We just don't know enough about when they happen, what's causing them.
The BC Trucking Association is calling on the province to provide public incident reports and more transparency during investigations.
Sometimes it's companies and drivers just not thinking that they have an oversized load and knowing what those issues are, and that's where education and outreach has to come in.
The loads are getting bigger, the equipment's getting bigger. That's not going to change.
The province says new measures will be introduced in the coming weeks, including a published list of BC carriers who have had serious safety violations. As for Weber, he says commercial drivers are responsible for planning the safest route, double-checking their load before they hit the road. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Langley.
BC's health minister says the government is taking urgent action to address staff shortages that forced 4 emergency rooms to close over the weekend. That includes making housing accessible, boosting specialized training, and trying to recruit more nurses.
Add 3 new operating rooms to be open in 2023. And we shall support an additional 5,400 OR hours and 3,240 procedures.
Dix also announcing more operating rooms in Kamloops. The news comes after ERs in the interior and on the island had to close, sometimes with very short notice. The hospital in Clearwater has been forced to shut its ER more than 24 times so far this year. Dix says the province is also adding more nursing spaces and offering money for staff from other parts of the region to fill in. A man has been charged in Friday's fatal shooting in Maple Ridge. Justin Michael Waring has been charged with a second-degree murder and attempted murder. The shooting happened the morning of July 15th along 119th Avenue. The victim, Kashmir Ali, died of her injuries, while a man sustained non-life-threatening injuries. There's no word on a possible motive, but police believe the victims were targeted. The investigation is ongoing, and anyone with information is asked to contact police. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in BC today, touring the Okanagan. He started in Lake Country and headed south from there. This is the Prime Minister's first public visit to the Valley since his trip to Penticton in 2018 for a BC Day. Trudeau was photographed at a children's day camp in Lake Country, at the BC Tree Fruits Cooperative in Kelowna, and then at Let's Orchards in Summerland. He did not make any announcements or take questions from the media. He is expected to visit Metro Vancouver next. Christy Brett, a housing advocate in Vancouver and Victoria, has died. As Benit Breach reports, advocates and allies are taking time to reflect on her life and remembering her as a fierce advocate for vulnerable communities.
I lived right here.
It's a moment of reflection for Claudette Abraham, walking on the site where Christy Brett helped Abraham settle, an encampment she and Brett once called home.
She was always there when I needed somebody to talk to.
Abraham remembers Christy Brett as a pillar of support for her and the largely Indigenous community at Strathcona Park. Brett lived in encampments around Vancouver, vying to help shelter and support those without a home.
She's like the blueprint of the way matriarchy is going to come about.
She recalls Brett asking her to make bannock and stew and advocating and putting in place a sacred fire at the tent city. She wanted to make people feel at home.
I'd go get hot chocolate. She'd make it up in the containers for everybody here.
Brett worked and lived with the marginalized in controversial encampments both in Vancouver and Victoria. When police took down the camp at Oppenheimer Park, she helped pave the move to Portsland near Crab Park. When that one was also dismantled, she helped with the move to Strathcona.
It was just a way of, understanding and having conversations, bringing people together.
Fiona York worked with Brett for 3 years, and she describes her as a warrior.
Advocating for individuals a lot around reconciliation and against colonialism.
Christy, to me, was the only superhero I've ever met.
Volunteer Patricia Nitkin says Brett offered a helping hand for a range of diverse problems people faced.
Stigma and the injustice against, in particular, homeless people who are Indigenous is, I think, even worse. And she she just stood up with so much power.
Brett's adoptive mother says she cared deeply about people since from a young age, a trait that later went on to help those like Claudette.
Well, she's gone into, like, you know, the next world. They needed a spiritual warrior.
She offers her respects to a woman considered a mentor and matriarch for so many. Benit Brach, CBC News, Vancouver.
Vaccines for infants and kids under 5 are on their way to BC, but what is it going to take to get all parents to buy in? We talked to GP Melissa Lem after the break about the shot. That's next. And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. The popularity of disc golf is surging across North America. It's like golf, except with frisbees, and you don't have to join a club. There are a number of courses you can try here in BC and across the country. Colleen Jones went to one in Halifax to test her skills.
You hear it before you see it.
Kind of happens inside 30 feet. Try to keep it in front of you.
Welcome to disc golf.
Missed that one.
As we get closer to the basket, we'll go over putting.
I'm at the free workshop as people try to figure out this sport. Disc golf is just like traditional golf, minus the clubs, balls, and having to join a club.
There's a lot more headwind there than I was expecting. The sport is one of the faster growing sports per capita in the world.
David Gillette has been a huge catalyst for the sport. How close is it to golf? Is it a second cousin twice removed? Or?
That's a great analogy. As far as the rules and the concept go, it's exactly like golf. The big differences from golf is that the majority of courses are free to play.
Now, disc golf on the Dartmouth Commons is a pilot project, testing to see what the interest is.
Anything we can do in our park spaces or just outdoors in the municipality to get people active is a good direction to go in.
Scott Penton is the community rec coordinator. He knows there's been some complaints about having this here on the Commons.
Yeah, it'll just go till the end of September 7th, and really it's just to test the interest in disc golf in HRM. It's not necessarily about the location. The location presented itself as an ideal place because of the location or proximity to the transit terminal. So
those trying it for the first time had a blast.
This is my first time here. Yeah.
Trying it?
Yeah, trying it.
Is it harder than it looks?
Actually, it's kind of easier than it looks.
What I like about it is I can do it with my dog. That's the best thing for me because we walk here every night and it's just nice to have your dog.
Will your dog take your disc?
Well, she kind of runs over to it and touches it, but she doesn't really chew it or anything.
We're all trying to coexist, so we just wait. It takes 2 seconds. Everybody's going to feel their way around the course in their own pace. You got ladies' night over here. You've got probably a couple of families playing. So you go with the flow. And if
How awesome is it?
It's fantastic. I live down the street. I've been playing disc golf for 5.5 years.
Keeners carry a full bag of discs. Different weights, different curl. How hard can this be? Like any sport, practice makes kind of perfect, and I could use a lot more of that. Meantime, I've got excuses.
The wind.
Colleen Jones, CBC News, Dartmouth.
Youngest disc player now.
BC has opened the registry for children aged 6 months to 4 years to get the COVID-19 vaccine. While many parents are waiting eagerly to get their kids under 5 vaccinated, some are still holding off, even with COVID cases on the rise. For some clarity on the new kids vaccine, I'm joined by Dr. Melissa Lem. Dr. Lem is a Vancouver family physician and clinical assistant professor at the University of British Columbia. She's also our resident doctor. So, Dr. Lem, what would you say to a mom or dad who's hesitant to get their child vaccinated at this point?
The first thing that I would do is listen to their concerns, because I'm a parent myself. I get it. We want what's best for our kids, and we would do anything to keep them safe. And this is exactly why I would recommend the COVID-19 vaccine for young children and every Health Canada recommended vaccine, because they're safe, they work, and they save lives. We are products of a generation that has vaccines to thank for preventing infectious diseases like polio, measles, and tetanus that had severe life-changing consequences for kids. And with COVID-19 specifically, we need to think about our larger families and social networks. While it's true that kids are at lower risk for severe illness than adults, vulnerable people like grandparents or kids who can't get vaccinated for various reasons are often part of our circles. So vaccination protects not only ourselves, but also our wider communities.
And have you seen a change with parents of older children who were once hesitant but are now getting their children vaccinated? Is there anything that can sway them?
I did have a few conversations with parents of older kids about this, and while some of them booked the first appointments they could, like myself, others took a wait-and-see approach. And some of those parents are still waiting and seeing. Although 90% of Canadians 12 and over have had 2 shots, only about 40% of kids between 5 and 11 have had the same. And I think part of the reason is that a lot of kids have already contracted COVID-19 at this point, so parents feel like they've been boosted. But unfortunately, with this virus, there's no such thing as one and done. You can catch it repeatedly. And we know that vaccines produce more effective and longer lasting immunity than infection. So I think educating parents about that fact, and also appealing to them on a personal level, telling a story, for example, about someone you know who's had a bad outcome might convince them.
So there's been a lot of misinformation about vaccines out there. What's the one that you tend to hear that comes up the most? I mean, I tend to hear a lot of, there's not enough research done on these vaccines. They're too new, too rushed. What do you hear about?
I would say the biggest misconception is that COVID-19 vaccines cause more problems than they prevent. And this is 100% false. Over 32 million people in Canada, including over 1.6 million kids under 12, have gotten at least 1 dose over the past 2 years, and no major issues have been identified. I will say at this point, most of us probably know children who have gotten COVID-19, and it seemed mild. But if you look at the bigger picture, COVID-19 hospitalizations in kids under 5 increased by over 10 times in the first 3 months of this year when Omicron started spreading. And even if the infection might seem mild at first, you never know what your immune system might do with it. Some kids do develop long-term serious symptoms, and if it's preventable, why not prevent it?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about preparing our kids. I've got a little one. He's not a fan of getting shots. Is there anything special to look out for, or things that you think that parents can say to their kids to help them prep?
Preparing for a COVID-19 vaccine is just like any other one. And for younger kids, it's usually best to tell them about the appointment shortly beforehand, not give them days and days to think about it. Staying calm and positive yourself and cuddling your child on your lap during the vaccine can help a lot. And distracting them too with a toy or music, or if they're a little bit older, getting them to breathe deeply can be useful. Common side effects to think about afterwards would be a sore arm, tiredness, or sometimes fever, and you can treat those as per usual with over-the-counter medications if you need to. And then don't forget to celebrate afterwards, because we just got 1 step closer to beating this pandemic.
Absolutely. Distraction is always a great one. Popsicle afterwards, right? Dr. Melissa Liem is a Vancouver family physician and clinical assistant professor at the University of British Columbia. Thanks, Dr. Liem.
You're welcome.
From coast to coast, hospitals are bursting at the seams. Why some ERs are telling would-be patients only show up if you're in dire need. That story is next.
Under Mount Rainier's watchful eye, Tad Sazaki's family planted its first vegetable crop 85 years ago. His dad started this farm with 10 acres. Now Tad has 78. Growing lettuce is what he knows best. Lettuce grows in Washington state from late May to the first frost. Tad's son Ron is a third-generation lettuce grower. For the first time in its history, though, their farm is losing money.
I'm meeting all costs, and I had to take out a loan to get started again this year, the first time I ever did. Major loan for me.
This is pretty clean, no tip burn.
Dean Cunningham started to buy lettuce 7 years ago when there was money to be made. He now markets for 23 growers. But California lettuce is pouring into Washington too, and that means tough times and cutbacks.
It's basically oversupplied. We're off about 28%. And we feel comfortable with that figure. We think we should grow what we can sell and plant what we can sell.
Did some growers after last season say that's it, we're packing it in?
4 or 5 growers went out of business, but we still have, another 65% of our grower base that are here, and this will be a better year. So far it is.
These Washington marketers question if BC's problem is just with California product.
Some of the fields up there that they're talking about, maybe they disced up. I've never seen them. I'd like to walk them. I would have liked to seen them before they were disced up to see what really the kind of quality of lettuce they were disking up. It could have been trash to begin with. I would never know that, but that's possible.
They'd welcome a Buy Washington campaign, give it a try, but doubt it's the answer.
I don't think the government can do you any damn good on any type of legislation. It's a matter of what the buyers want and what the market's available and whether growers are making money or not making money. You can't phony it up with legislation.
You got to remember, the lawmakers aren't the ones that are planting the lettuce, and they don't have the expertise in growing the lettuce. They're definitely not on the telephone pushing to open up new markets on the lettuce. So why go up there and dump all the lettuce on the Parliament's building steps? It has to be done at the farm level. Increased quality, increased markets will increase price.
The BC lettuce growers are pretty good lettuce growers, and you just have to meet the competition, and you have to take them on. We take them on, they have to take them on, and it goes around, comes around, it seems like, and they take shots at me, and I'm going to take shots back at them. And hey, when you get shot at, that's the way life goes.
Belle Puri, CBC News, Puyallup, Washington.
Hospitals in rural areas have been hit hard by emergency room closures, as we've seen in the interior and on Vancouver Island. But staffing shortages are also affecting hospitals in urban areas across the country. A children's hospital in Montreal is advising patients to avoid the ER whenever possible. Lorenda Redikoff gives us a closer look at what's causing the crisis.
The emergency alert is over for the Montreal Children's Hospital, less than a day after it started, but this message remains.
Non-urgent, non-serious illnesses are not meant for emergency rooms.
He says that means conditions such as earaches, pink eye, and bladder infections don't belong in the ER, but a family doctor's office or walk-in clinic. The hospital said it had a high volume of patients yesterday needing critical care.
We basically went into a mode of truth in advertising. We could register you, but if we're not going to see you for 12, 14, 16, 18 hours, that's pretty much the same thing as not seeing you.
It's not a surge in COVID cases, but a range of other illnesses and low staffing numbers. That's the problem in Kingston, Ontario as well. They've capped the number of patients visiting the urgent care centre at Hotel Dieu Hospital each day at 120. It's not directly COVID, but many staff are off because they've contracted it.
I think we had 50 off today, and we're seeing between 10 and 20 new staff cases every day. It's not as bad as it was back earlier in the spring, but it's trending upwards in that direction.
As Wave 7 continues, the worry is that next there will be an increase in COVID patients. That's as some emergency rooms have had to close in some parts of Ontario and BC. In Quebec, it's not only Montreal's Children's Hospital.
Now, for the past 2 years, wave after wave, we've lost personnel. We have seen other areas of healthcare failing, and ER essentially absorbing a lot of those failures.
The province's nurses union says it's been warning about this for years.
The summertime, there's always an increase because of vacations, because of people going to more rural areas. So all of that we're seeing right now was completely predictable.
It says a big part of the solution is better working conditions to keep staff from quitting. Lorenda Redikoff, CBC News, Toronto.
In the meantime, some encouraging news on a healthcare breakthrough. An innovative new procedure has set a precedent for heart transplant surgeries. Miriam Tanus, now 12 years old, has become the youngest person in Canada to receive total artificial heart replacement. Ali Chiasson brings us the story of a little girl known as Miriam Miracle.
Miriam was born with 2 forms of congenital heart disease. By age 11, she suffered heart failure. Her heart transplant failed last year.
You know, it's not easy.
But instead of giving up hope, her family put their faith in the cardiologists at Sick Kids Hospital.
It was a really extremely long shot.
Dr. Osami Honjo and his team decided they'll attempt the first total artificial heart transplant on the youngest patient ever in Canada. She was also the smallest.
Based on her chest cavity size, it was really a tight fit.
The doctors kept her chest open for 5 days.
Once her blood pressure has stabilized and the pump flow got stabilized, we are able to close the chest.
She was on mechanical ventilation for 16 days while her family prayed the device would take.
To be honest, we're scared. I'm crying a lot in that time.
Then her doctors uttered the words,
"She's okay. She will be good." I swear, crying. Spoke with her. I say, "Look, Miriam, you are so strong. I don't know if you hear me or not beside her, but you will be good."
The artificial heart bought them time until a human heart transplant could be attempted again. And now, 1 year later, she's thriving, earning the nickname Miriam Miracle.
Say hi, Miriam.
What's one thing you want to do this summer before you have to go back to school?
Play with the dog.
It turns out the dog's nickname is pretty fitting, too.
This is Lucky.
You know, this is sort of beginning of her new journey, and I'm really hoping that this time will last very long.
And in the meantime, she can go on living her life now as it should be, as a kid, going to do kid things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that's the whole purpose of doing this difficult operations.
While setting a medical precedent that the artificial heart procedure can be successful in a young patient, the Sick Kids doctors gave now 12-year-old Miriam a new lease on life.
The message to the Sick Kids Hospital, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you for everything you did for us, to our family.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
For many Canadians, learning to swim is considered a basic life skill, but not all children have access to that training. Those in remote Indigenous communities have often been left out, putting them at a much higher risk of drowning. Katie Nicholson looks at one program's efforts to change that.
All right, let's go in. Is it nice and warm? No.
It's not a heated swimming pool.
Just keep those knees straight, Motorboat, go so fast.
And that's kind of the point.
I can do it too. 2 seconds? Okay, let's try. Ready? And 1, 2. Good job. Stanley tagged you.
This is the 9th year the Red Cross's Indigenous Swimming and Water Safety Program has come to Fishing Lake Métis Settlement.
One of the things that we're told that they're most grateful for is the ability to bring programming into the communities, in the lakes and rivers and waterways that their children are swimming in, and actually to have those lessons in the lakes that they're using on a day-to-day basis.
The risk of drowning for Indigenous children is as much as 15 times higher than the Canadian average. Since 2013, this program has tried to change that, bringing swimming lessons to 73 communities across 6 provinces and territories.
I've seen a lot of the children go from being 4 or 5-year-olds, being a little bit tentative in the water, to now becoming water watchers and becoming those leaders and water safety leaders in their communities.
Like 14-year-old Trey Callio.
I learned that I have to keep count of kids a lot to make sure that a lot of them don't go underwater.
Others are mastering more basic skills.
I ducked my whole head in the water and my whole body. And I didn't even plug my nose.
Can you show me how you're a mermaid in the water again on your belly?
And while it's clearly a lot of fun, the very serious reason they're here, never far from the surface.
So if I go tubing, when I'm older, I don't fall in the water and drown, even though I'm probably going to be wearing a life vest.
It's too early to know for sure if the program is having an impact on drowning statistics, but there are other rewards.
I was in one community where a grandmother was in one of our lessons learning how to swim, and she brought her granddaughter to learn how to swim with her. So 18 years old and 65 years old learning to swim together. It's beautiful.
Okay. Can I do this?
Beautiful and hopefully a little safer for everyone. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
6:38 p.m. here in Vancouver, and that's your live look in Paris. No doubt many people are probably still awake there. It's early morning, but because it's currently 26 degrees, not exactly comfortable sleeping temperatures. The latest on the heat crisis in Europe that's coming up. And there's a live look from our station tonight where skies have started to clear and it's nice and cool and wet over here. There's going to be a bit of a change though coming. Shorts and t-shirt weather are here. Johanna will be here with the full forecast next.
So my daughter, she's 13, she's a teenager. She is aware of the dangers that she could face out there. My sons are aware, and I have 3 of them, and I remind them, I said, because of the way you look, there are people out there who will have a problem with that.
It's hard having those conversations with my kids. My kids are 10 and 8. Like the Gerald Stanley case, Colton Bougie case, but like the also missing and murdered Indigenous women, you know, and like even if I were to try to shield them from it, like that's not going to help them. But like also I can't. Like my youngest son loves TikTok, and he saw a video, like a car driving by, the guy jumping out and grabbing a kid and throwing him in the car, and that like terrified him. Like he would be playing in the front yard. Anytime a car drove by, he would like run in fear into the house because he was so scared of getting stolen.
It's hard to say this, it really is. It's hard to admit this, and I try my hardest not to say this to my kids, but that's just the way it is, you know? I'm really trying hard to, as a parent, to stay away from that, because I don't want them to grow up believing like, oh, they're gonna treat me like that because I'm an Indian. You know, I want, you know, that's something I struggle with as a parent, is staying away from that. It's just the way it is.
I'm gonna do this for Krista first. Krista, gonna shut your eyes. I could have never imagined, you know, they were going to do anything that they can do now. There's nobody in the world that's connected the same way that they are. I'm gonna touch somewhere on Sissy. You gotta tell me where it is, okay? Yep. Now where? Very good.
Due to their connection, they're able to feel what the other child feels.
Doing what we normally do with them, just seeing what sensories are actually still working and active, and just having a bit of fun. Now where am I touching?
Oh, yeah.
Very good. Now where am I touching?
On her nose.
Very good.
They're even able to see through each other's eyes.
What color is it?
Purple and white.
Oh, you got purple. It actually takes a lot more effort for them to see things through each other's eyes than it does to feel things. Okay.
A bat.
No.
Gambling.
Can't see it. And Taddy, can you tell me what color this is?
Pink.
Very good.
Right now, a deadly heat wave has much of Europe in its grip, and Britain is being hit by sweltering temperatures. And for the first time ever, it's under an extreme heat warning. Margaret Evans shows us the widespread impacts of an unprecedented heat wave.
The United Kingdom has been bracing itself for just this. The same kinds of blinding temperatures already afflicting continental Europe, now here too, and bringing with them plenty of woes. At Luton Airport outside London, flights were suspended when parts of the runway were reportedly softening. And many travellers hoping to ride the rails found their trains cancelled for fear the tracks might buckle in the heat.
I managed to choose the worst day to go, the day on the heat wave.
I've been here 5 minutes. I can feel the sweat coming on. I feel like I'm in a greenhouse right now.
It's a rare thing on a sunny day in central London to find a free table outside for lunch. Not so today. Many clearly heeding advice to stay indoors. Experts say it's not just high temperatures setting this heat wave apart. It's the breadth of the country they're impacting. England's green and pleasant land, now tawny and parched. A record number of wildfires reported in both England and Wales. Climate scientist Nigel Arnell.
Our record temperature so far was 38.7 degrees a couple of years ago. We're going to exceed that. And the high temperatures will be occurring over a very large area. So it's an unprecedented event.
Climate change activists hope that the unprecedented nature of the UK's heat wave will encourage people who might have been ambivalent about global warming up to now to take it a little more seriously. But a recent poll of British Conservatives, currently in the process of choosing Britain's next Prime Minister, listed climate change as the least of their concerns. Arnell says that's a problem.
I think a lot of the discussion at the moment is about the short-term risks of doing something about climate change and not the longer-term benefits of having done something about climate change.
Temperatures tomorrow are set to be even higher.
That was Margaret Evans reporting. Across southern France and Spain, that heat is fueling wildfires and transforming landscapes into smoke-filled infernos. In France alone, thousands have fled their homes. As Rafi Boudjikanian explains, dramatic images underscore a blunt warning from the head of the UN.
A farmer chases his goats away, hoping to spare them from the fire. Another watches his wheat burn. It's a natural disaster, he says. Everyone's doing what they can, but this is a force of nature.
What's he doing?
A force so potent it stopped this train in its tracks. The flames have claimed 2 lives in Spain so far, and thousands have been forced from their homes. This man crossing his fingers the fire will only scorch the outside of his home, while another already knows he's worse off. Our house is gone. We had a van. It's gone too, he says. Fires are also burning in Greece, in Italy, and in France, where at least 24,000 people have been forced to flee their homes as record heat suffocates the continent. The world itself is 1.2 degrees hotter now than it was during pre-industrial times.
Half of humanity is in the danger zone from floods, droughts, extreme storms and wildfires. No nation is immune.
Prompting this dire warning.
This has to be the decade of decisive climate action. We have a choice: collective action or collective suicide.
Environmentalists pointing out, as a greenhouse gas emitter, Canada has its own role to play.
We need to get real about the fact that dealing with the climate emergency means a transition away from oil and gas.
Limiting warming to 1.5 degrees is definitely a massive social and economic undertaking that we have to do, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible.
In Canada, the goal remains a 40 to 45% emissions cut by 2030 compared to 2005. Today, the Environment Department started seeking consultations from the public on how to do that. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
And meteorologist Johanna Wagstaff joins us again. So, Joe, both those stories, some really, terrifying reality about what's happening here. And right now, that heat, it's middle of the night and people are not seeing relief.
No, you said it, Lien. In fact, I've got the current temperatures across Europe right now. I want to show you what they are as we head into the early morning hours, 3:30 a.m. London local time, and we're in the mid-20s. Paris, the middle of the night, basically 27 degrees. Now, just checked London Heathrow hitting 37 degrees today, Monday. Tuesday, expected to hit 40 degrees. There's a 50% chance London will hit 40 degrees, something that city has never seen before. And I've got to tell you, I was in Glasgow for the climate change conference in past November, talking to a lot of other UK meteorologists about the BC heat dome experience and doing interviews for their local shows where they were, sharing with their local UK audiences. Can you even imagine those kinds of temperatures that Vancouver experienced? And that's exactly what they're getting these 2 days. Now, at least it is a much shorter heat dome than what we saw here, but tomorrow is unfortunately going to be the big day. Check out our warm-up as I take you to the BC forecast. Here's Tuesday's afternoon highs, hitting those low to mid 30s across the interior. This is the start of our warm and sunny stretch for the interior, where we will see fire danger creep up. Look, Wednesday expected to be a bit of a peak for the heat this week across the south. That'll translate to 30s in the valley and 25s for YVR. Coming down a little bit for Thursday and Friday into the weekend. I mean, a little bit by a couple of degrees, still hot, sunny, and then rebounding into that heat wave again for early next week. So we may well see special weather statements and heat warnings across parts of BC in the days to come. We'll definitely keep you posted. And that's as high pressure builds in. We're seeing the last of that instability. Here's Tuesday, 7 p.m. Just a few scattered showers out towards the Rockies. Maybe some high cloud to kick Wednesday off, but not much else as far as sky conditions with that high pressure dominating. So tomorrow we've got a 32 in through Kelowna, 29 for Cranbrook. You still have a lingering chance of a shower tonight, but even Prince George and Williams Lake, places that really haven't got much past the mid-teens for the past week, finally starting to see those seasonal temperatures. And Prince Rupert, you may even see some sunshine tomorrow afternoon. So quite the turnaround in the forecast. I know we thought we were getting into a long, dry stretch, and we did last week for Vancouver before the unsettled weekend. A little low pressure system did skirt through, but this stretch is much stronger. Look at those temperatures, Lien. That's YVR. So again, our hottest, longest stretch. It definitely feels like the summers we've been getting used to is right around the corner.
Right, we had long been waiting for that, but I gotta say, I've been grateful for the cool and wet weather. It's been pretty nice, actually. All right,
the double-edged sword.
Absolutely, and I like your outfit. I gotta note that too. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. You're welcome.
If you've been struggling to get the training wheels off your little one's ride, a unique camp may be the answer. Cranking into high gear after the break.
In 2015, I calculated my carbon footprint itself. Like a lot of people say that it's just a few big companies causing climate change. But I questioned that. I was wondering, could it be individual lives that caused it? So I calculated it. My name's Adam Richard. I work at UNB as a math tutor and trying to live an eco-friendly life, so trying to reduce my carbon footprint. My thinking was, if we take the total carbon footprint of all of humanity, which at the time I looked up was 26.4 gigatons per year, divide that by 7 billion, then if an ordinary life has a much lower carbon footprint than that, then that would mean it's the big companies that are, or the few big polluters that are doing it. But I calculated it, and unfortunately, actually, not only is an ordinary Canadian life not less than that, actually even my own carbon footprint was a bit higher than the world average. So that means it's actually individuals individual people living ordinary lives that are causing climate change. It's simply not ethical to live the average Canadian life. It was mainly going without a car, and later I also made the choice to eat less meat. The other big thing is just buying less stuff. I've even considered, for example, moving to Latin America, where we don't need to heat our house, which is the biggest source of electricity usage. But yeah, it's quite hard to have a low enough carbon footprint. I started planting the occasional trees in about 2020. Since trees put carbon or take carbon out of the atmosphere and put oxygen back, they actually reduce your carbon footprint. So eventually, with enough tree planting, I could reduce it to zero. I think of things in terms of if everyone was doing this action, would we have a good world? So those are the actions I try to do. I guess I'm more of an idealist in that way. Even if not everyone will end up doing those actions, I still want to act the way I should.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell. Here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Don't miss the Vancouver Queer Film Festival, August 11th to 21st. Enjoy the best in local and international queer cinema, along with workshops, filmmaker panels, and more. Get tickets today at queerfilmfestival.ca. And on July 31st, join your favorite CBC Vancouver and CBC British Columbia personalities at the Vancouver Pride Parade. Learn more at vancouverpride.ca.
Big wins for two BC athletes at the World Athletics Championships over the weekend. First off, Cameron Rogers is the first Canadian woman to reach the podium in hammer throw at the elite event.
She's safely in to get 3 more throws after this, but would like to find her rhythm, which has not quite been there yet on the first 2 throws. Number 3 ranked thrower in the world.
Look at that throw. It's not only Canada's first medal in the discipline at Worlds, but the country's first for a woman in any field event. With her best throw reaching more than 75 meters, the 23-year-old takes home the silver.
I am so motivated. I'm so excited. And to be coming home with this medal shows that every throw, every lift, every minute spent training, this is what it leads to.
She is a 3-time NCAA champion, winning her 3rd title in just a month ago. And also, that's the moment Corey Levin crossed the finish like the Worlds in Eugene yesterday, coming in 4th overall and once again breaking the national men's marathon record. He beat his own personal best by shaving off a remarkable 2 minutes from the 42-kilometer distance. Clearly exhausting, as you can see.
I really want to compete well internationally. I want that world championship medal. I want that Olympic medal. Those are the reasons I'm still going on. And so to get 4th now, with a couple of years left still to the next Olympics, I got to think that as long as I continue to improve, I got a shot.
Cam Levin says finishing just off the podium was bittersweet, but credits his new training regime for this latest success. Every elite athlete begins somewhere. Through a national record or world championship medal is not everyone's goal, though. Learning to ride a bike can be a challenge enough, and a community has come together near Winnipeg to help riders improve their skills and potentially change their lives. CBC Manitoba visit the I Can Shine bike camp. Have a look.
I was looking for better training wheels for my son Liam when he was about 13, 14 years old, and he was already starting to get a bit bigger, so looked into training wheels, went and looked online, found Lose the Training Wheels website, and that was the original name of I Can Shine. Liam attended the camp, and by the end of the week he was up on 2 wheels, which was super exciting.
It was so much fun. Like, the experience was so much fun.
I was absolutely blown away that in 1 week, I tried working on it for close to 8 years since he was just a little guy, and your back's getting sore from trying to run behind him, and it happens. So yeah, it was pretty exciting.
So the roller bikes are the real magic of the program. Keeping the riders on there and working on those, they allow the rider to learn the skills to riding a bike without any real instruction. So the rider's body's just naturally on that bike, learn to ride a two-wheeler. So then the transition there works out perfectly. The bike really requires the rider to engage it with their hips, shoulders, feet, and hands, and forces all those skills to be developed just by being on it.
It's so amazing. I want to just watch her the entire session, but I'm also volunteering. I'm taking a couple of seconds to look at her and continue helping the other kids. Yeah, it's so emotional.
It's incredible. It's a lot of fun. You know, you come in on Monday and you set up and you don't know what the week's going to bring, but as it goes on and on, you get to see more and more progress and success, not only with the riders, but the family, the volunteers. It's an amazing time.
One thing that I found with this camp, it's not just the kids that are affected, it's the volunteers as well. There's so many successes that you see throughout this camp, and it's not just getting up and riding a bike. It's seeing them overcome challenges, overcome anxiety, fears. Volunteers learn how to work with kids that maybe have a disability that they've never actually experienced before. So all these experiences are successes throughout the camp. So it's pretty exciting to see.
That's a cool program there out of Manitoba. Very nice. All right. That's it for us tonight. Thank you for being with us on CBC News at 6. And to remind you, if you don't already do it, you should try and watch us on CBC Gem. That's our free app. I believe it's commercial free, so there's always that. All right. I'll be back here tomorrow. Have a good night.